Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Ankerstar Wealth Market Update. I'm your host, Allison Ankerstar, and today we'll be talking about action in Black Rifle coffee stock, the hope that we have just hitting peak inflation, and the return of the mask mandate. But before we begin, as a reminder, this is a financial education presentation and should not be construed as personal financial advice. Full disclaimer information is available at ankerstarwealth.com. Good morning, Steve. Black Rifle Coffee Company has been on fire since its IPO a few weeks ago. Is the run over?
Well, good morning, Allison. Good morning, everyone. Let's take a look at Black Rifle here. This is the 3-month chart, 3-month chart, and you couldn't ask for more out of a stock, right? So the exciting part is we identified this well before February. We had moved into, remember, this IPO is through a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company. So that's where a blank check company buys an existing company and then flips the ticker to something new, and then it runs from there. And that's the IPO process. Very efficient and inexpensive is what I meant there. Efficient and inexpensive, the good things, right? So that's what Black Rifle chose to do, and it's really paid off for them. SPACs, when they stand up as a blank check company, stand up at basically $10. So if you were to run this, I don't know how far the chart goes back, 1 year, here's that $10, right? $10. A little bit of hype that the SPAC was going to happen. It ran up to 11, but basically it sat at 10 for the most part until they had the actual IPO. So trying to get this to where, we'll get to a 3-month chart here. There we go. So on around February 7th is when it jumped up. You saw within a few days it doubled up to 20, and now we've hit our triple just a few weeks later. So what to do when you're in a stock that has a move like this? Well, like I was talking yesterday, the stock is now fully decoupled. The stock price is fully decoupled from the stock, right? So at 3.3 times what it was worth, a few weeks ago. Well, that's not really true. I don't really think the stock price has a chance, unfortunately, to stay up here. But I do think that it's going to run up and peak somewhere and then come crashing back down. So this is one of these times where you either, it's nice to where your full-time job is to stare at charts, where I can dedicate a screen to this in the office every day, like I have for the past couple of weeks, and just have it up. And I have my alerts set, and I'm looking for, a major move up or down that might signal that this thing is over. So when you look at the core company itself, so we'll talk about the core company and then the stock price. This is the core company's website. Black Rifle Coffee, they do everything right. I mean, this is a branding home run. You look at their gear, not only that rifle, they're veteran owned and operated. Everything is, kind of a black and silver branding. Everything they do is cool. They give a portion of their donations back. They have loyalty and rewards. They have subscriptions, My Coffee Club, to make it personal. They have a sponsorship. Here in the middle, I think we saw of a gentleman that don't know for sure who that is. Looks like a racer of some sort. Bike racer looks like, but anyway, they're doing kind of everything right. And the subscription program, the best part about that is once somebody signs on, then as long as you, a company, continues to deliver your product on time and you meet keep the rigorous standards you have for your goods or services, the customer loyalty is forever, right? They're going to stay with you as long, because they value your product or service. So really everything has gone right for Black Rifle as a company. They are opening stores. See if there's a locations here, store locator. So I don't think there's one in Austin, but we're about to find out because I'll type it in I guess maybe I don't have to. Enter a location. Let's go Austin. If it doesn't recognize that as Austin, Texas. So, well, there you go. There's your Black Rifle Coffee. Now, I don't think these are dedicated stores. These are just places that carry it. But anyhow, that's not the point. The point is they're expanding significantly, and the stock is, of course, rewarding that. So when you look at the financials, a lot of stuff is just trickling in because they just IPO'd. So we haven't really had that first real earnings report yet. So stand by for that. But what to do when, if you had some shares here at $10, at 20, you should have sold some. So that's why you see, it hits 20 and it settles in. Yesterday, it kind of went above 30. I do expect it to settle in today as people sell this morning, rewicker in their portfolios. So you want to say you bought 100 shares originally, that's $1,000 in the stock, peel off a couple hundred, once you get up to a double, right? And then once you get to a triple, you peel off another couple hundred. And at some point you go, okay, I'm gonna let the rest ride. That's not how I do it anymore. Once I get this triple, I'm going to basically have at least half off the table for most folks where I've already taken those profits. Then I'm going to just kind of wait and see on the rest and wait for it to shoot up. And at some point it'll shoot up and kind of crash back down. I do think this stock is in play as far as I don't have any proof that it's on Reddit or whatever, but I do, though the volume is increasing. And when you look at stocks that were in play, kind of decoupled from their fundamentals, as you watched AMC go from $10 all the way up to 60 before it kind of came crashing back down. So I do kind of think it's going to pull an AMC. I have hopes that, I had hopes from initially, everybody thought I was crazy when I said, hey, it's going over 20. Then it's like, yep, straight to 30. I do think it continues up to 40, and then we'll see from there. Don't want to be silly enough to produce a prediction of the exact peak, but I do think there's a lot more to run to the upside, but you should have already taken a little bit of profits off the table by now.
Next, inflation hit 8.5% this morning, which is the highest reading since 1981. How can the futures be up on this news?
Yeah, highest inflation since 1981, and the futures are up, right? Isn't that like counterintuitive? Well, with a lot of investing, that it is counterintuitive, right? And that's why you can sit there and think, and at any age, you can think you design an algorithm that can capture the words of headlines and trade on it, and out and beat the market, right? You can outsmart the market. There's an entire city built in Nevada of people that think they can outwit or outcompete, or they have an advantage somehow against games, in games that they have mathematically are the disadvantage, right? Like blackjack. People think they have a system. They have a roulette system. It's like Las Vegas welcomes that. It's just like, please bring us your system and check it with our systems, right? Because you're wrong. Same thing with this. So what's going on here? So we've obviously had, three main themes, if you will, for 2022. I talked about this in the advisory brief the other day. You've got inflation, which is the disease. You've got the Federal Reserve and what they're going to do about inflation, which is the cure. And again, you don't want to kill the patient with the cure, right? So you've got the disease, the cure, and then of course we have Ukraine, Russia situation, which isn't getting a lot of headlines anymore, at least, as far as affecting markets, but it's still going on. You don't want to be insensitive to that, but I think that wraps up at some point. And so those are kind of your three main themes out there. So you have one of your most negative themes hits a new high, you would think the market would come crashing down. Well, when you actually click on this and start looking about what folks are saying, now economists, I'll throw them, in the category of, weather people, if you will, as far as predicting things. It's not really all that predictable. But for those that consider themselves smart, like Ed Yardini, if I'm saying that correct, he's on CNBC all the time. Here's his call. So, peak inflation kind of right now, and then see the deflation, deflate, if you will, down to, inflation deflate down into 6 to 7%, and then maybe to 3 to 4% by the second half of the year. That would be huge. That means if it comes down that fast, that means we have completely beaten inflation. So that's a huge win. Hopefully Russia and Ukraine aren't still going on by then. That would be another huge win for the world. And then lastly, we wouldn't need to for the Fed to raise rates as high as they project to if inflation's under control. So that's kind of the triple threat home run of the market screaming higher if what he says is true. Again, one opinion, very smart person, obviously made his career off of, his projections. So I'm not saying he's wrong, just saying, man, that's pretty optimistic. And if that happens, then yeah, we go higher. 2022, instead of just hoping to get back to even or, eke out a little bit of a gain, 2022 could be a banner year if all three of those things come true. So in conclusion, we get the worst reading we've had in 40 years. And the market goes higher. So that's why you don't try to get too smart with the market.
Last, Philadelphia is returning to a mask mandate to fight COVID. Will this move affect the markets?
Well, it affects me because I'm going to Philadelphia here in 2 weeks with my youngest daughter to go play volleyball. No, I'm not playing volleyball. I'm watching volleyball, but she's going to play. And if you've been following whether it's sports or airlines or big events out there, we've slowly as the US, we've been working away from the COVID protocols, right? We still have to wear it in hospital, wear a mask in hospitals. It's like, okay, yep, got it. Most people can go, yeah, that's fine. That makes sense. However, even the airlines are worldwide are starting to drop the mask mandates. I don't know where it stands here in the US because I haven't flown in a couple of weeks, but I mean, they're right on the edge of getting rid of the mask mandate, right? So here you have a major city deciding to go back to the mask mandate. Obviously, they feel strongly enough to do it. They're the first major city in the US to go this direction, but it breaks a continuous stride of victories, if you will, against COVID. So when I talked about things that affect the market, I've talked about inflation, the Fed, and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I didn't even mention COVID, right? Does that now bring COVID back into the story? Unfortunately, I think it does. So we'll see. Obviously, it'll be months before we have any real data, but there could be political pressure now going into midterm elections. I don't know how the leadership of Philadelphia, if they're left or right or whatever. I largely stay clear of that, but certainly you could see some lines being drawn, politically, making this kind of a miserable situation of people feel compelled to either do or don't going into the midterm election. So anyhow, I just wanted to bring that up, that it's out there. If you think COVID is completely dead, don't forget it's not. China is going through an aggressive quarantining program to really make sure it does not spread to the tunes of millions of people in quarantine. And over here, we're not really doing much of anything compared to either that or compared to what we were even doing. So I do think this is going to be a wait and see to see if COVID enters the conversation as far as how the markets perform in 2022. I do think that if we wrap up the other issues out there, i.e. inflation subsides, the Fed's under control, and Ukraine and Russia reach some term of peace talks, people do need things to freak out about. And I think maybe COVID could be that topic that, if nothing else, let's go back to freaking out about COVID. So not making a call here one way or the other, but I do think it could re-enter the equation.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Please submit your questions as a comment through social media or directly to our email at vipservices@ankerstarwealth.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to get daily updates. That's our way up for today's show. I'm Allison Ankerstar, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.